Hello our viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before the screen, my name is Sagala Tariq Nsamba, a student of Chinnawa High School Kayampe campus, offering PCM, Physics, Chemistry and Mathematics, stroke ICT. The ICT being part of my combination as a subject here at Chinnawa High School Kayampe campus with our articulated teachers of information and communication technology. They will train us on how to use a computer and everything that deals with a computer. So today, what we're going to look at in particular is the system unit of a computer, most of which people normally confuse it with a CPU. You normally call someone, then you send them for a CPU, they bring the whole of this. But we're going to look at what makes up the system unit and what differentiates the system unit from the central processing unit, call it the CPU. So to begin with, we shall begin by exhibiting or showing you what it begins with. It begins all with the power source. This is the power source which you can normally call a socket, where you have the power supplied to the system unit. When the power comes to the system unit, it first reaches to the power supply of the system unit, because this direct voltage and current is too high to be regulated by the motherboard. Because being that the motherboard is the base area for functionality of the system unit, we shall have the regulation of the high current and high voltage by the power supply of our system unit, as you're seeing this in the right upper corner, then literally supplied and well regulated and supplied to the motherboard. So when the current and the regulated voltage is supplied to the motherboard, it's distributed and then it can start to function. So it all begins with the central processing unit, a very small piece that is located and embedded beneath the heat cooler here. So this central processing unit, without it, you can never have your computer functioning. Reason being, it's the brain of the computer. Because without your brain, nothing can come to its functionality. The same applies to the computer, because this computer set was all built or with a copy from the human body. So in the same way, as we have the brains processing how we can function in the day-to-day activities, the same way we can have the central processing unit. So with high functionality, the CPU comes to heat, and it thus needs to be cooled. This is what we call a fan. If you see it very well and clear here, whenever the CPU that I showed you earlier comes to heat or happens to become too hot, this fan blows the hot air to the heat sink. This is the heat sink, what you're seeing here. So this heat sink is what absorbs the heat directly from the CPU. From physics, the blown heat all concentrates at the heat sink here. The reason why we call it a heat sink, because it sinks and absorbs all the heat that could be emitted by the central processing unit. So from here, this one is made of a high melting point material like copper or anything else that requires high amounts of heat to change state. So we can never have this changing state, however much it's going to receive too much heat. So from there, I can show you what we call the BIOS chip, call it the ROM, this black square-shaped piece. So this BIOS chip or ROM is called, or you can term it as the read-only memory. This is particularly to save or store the manufacturer's information. For example, you see this system unit is manufactured by Dell. So if you want to know all about it, and you're going to use your monitor here, you visit about the system unit and all the information that you're going to receive, the serial number, the batch number, the product's name, is all stored here on the BIOS chip. Coming to these two, they're called RAM slots. These RAM slots is where we insert the RAM disks or the RAM chips. For example, this flat chip that you're seeing here. So each of these two RAM slots takes two and only two RAM chips, regardless of when, because you can choose to insert 4 RAM chips at the same time. So they're called the random access memory. This is where we temporarily store the data or information from the monitor. Have you ever tried to ask yourself why, whenever you accessing Word, you can rest it a bit without closing it? For example, when you rested the word processor or PowerPoint or any application, you can still access that data without even saving it. So that temporary saving of the data is all done by the random access memory. So after you choose to save that data, or when you're trying to close the application, and they tell you, do you want to save the changes, do you want to save the data, and you accept, the data is thus transformed from the RAM to the hard disk here. This hard disk is of a higher value of GB, the gigabytes, because it has to store literally many information or more information. So after you want to save anything, be it a movie, be it work by an application or Word or PowerPoint, it's all saved in the hard disk. Thank you. So from there, at times you happen to say, I want to use a compact disc. So you have what we call the CD-ROM. This is the CD-ROM. Its main role, this particular thing, this box that you're looking at here, its particular role is to read and write on the CD. That CD that you have, that round silver colored or bluish material, it's called a compact disc CD. Its full form is a compact disc. You can normally insert it in the plate here. Whenever you press here, it comes out, you place the compact disc on that. But apparently, with the current technology innovation, these are coming to, let me call it an expiry. We're coming to flash disks. But when you insert that there, you can write and read what's on the compact disc. If you want to watch a movie, you put it inside, then the computer reads what's on the compact disc. If you want to write something on the compact disc or put a movie there, as people do on the libraries where you live, so that's done by the CD-ROM. So after that, we can also look at one or two or three other things of which make up the system unit. We have what we call the network card. So looking at this plate is what we call the network card. As you see, it's connected to these 4 Ethernet cables. So the particular role of this network card is majorly to supply network. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of these computers, all these desktops, can all share the same system unit, can all share the same keyboard, can all share the same printer. But you know what makes up that? It's the network card. I want you to know the difference between a network card or a network or an internet in particular. Network is a general term, and it has, among its subsets is internet. But internet, all internets are networks, but not all networks are internet. So some people say, I don't have network. Network is not internet. Network is the connectivity, the interconnectivity between the ICT tools. So coming to that, you can share anything, any resource, be it a keyboard, be it a printer, be it a system unit, from more than one computer set, or from more than one monitor. This is a monitor. When it's a full set that is full to be used or completely to be used, it's called a computer. So we can come to something else. When you look at this, these are capacitors. They store a charge. These small cylindrical shaped materials inside the motherboard. Well seated on them, they are partitioned to what? To store a charge. Yeah, so that's it. Then, looking at anything else here, we have talked about the hard disks, of which you can have more than one hard disk at a point or at a time. We have heard about the CD-ROM. You can also have one or more than one CD-ROM at a time, because they provide an improvision on this system unit. For example, this is the major CD-ROM that's coming from, or that comes with the system unit, but this is a provision. You see how big it is, provision of more CD-ROMs to use. So these are ports of the flash disks, as I told you, that we're having the incurring technology that is coming to an increment with innovation. So also, there's something more crucial Have you ever taken a point of notice and you see that on your monitor you can try to reset that date and time and it works after switching off the computer without even network or internet? It can happen to show you the same date, but the moment it fails to do so, there's a problem, and the problem is coming from the very source, the system unit. But it's coming from the system unit, as we have heard from that. It has a particular source that is causing all that, which we call the CMOS. This CMOS chip, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. This is to store only and only the configuration settings or information. All the configuration information, like the date, the time on your the date on your calendar, the time. You can happen to save that today is 1st of June 2026. Then after you switching off the computer, it then shows you another date as it wills. So there's a problem, and this is in line to be changed. At times when you take a point and you restart the computer, it will always display F1, CMOS checks and bad. After the CMOS checks and bad, it requests you for, or it shows you like default loaded. So whenever that monitor displays that, it has a problem with the CMOS chip. So those are the major components that make up a system unit, and without those, you can never have it to function. We've talked about, let's revise it a little bit. We've talked about the power supply, the hard disks. We have talked about the CD-ROMs, the CDs themselves, the RAM slots, the RAM chips. We've talked about the BIOS or the BIOS chip or the ROM. We've talked about the CMOS, the network card, to mention but a few. So after everything, so you have learnt about what you've learnt about, so you can happen to close or cover up your system unit. So with much care, so we're closing this, the system unit, having it safely stored. But next time as we meet, we shall talk about the computer set. What makes up the computer set? Why you call it a computer? What differs a monitor and a computer? Because most of you call this alone or this alone the computer, but literally that's wrong. So we shall talk about all that. I shall talk about these cables, how they connect, because these are USB cables. This is VGR, video or virtual graphics array, to mention but a few. So next time, dear viewers, I wish you a nice time.